Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Those Two Geeks. He's Alex. I'm once again Joe. I am back. It has been a bit. It feels like forever, even though it hasn't been forever, but it sure does feel like a while.
Technically, because we're recording out of order, but technically for those listening, it's been a few days.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So through the magic of space and time. But that's a good segue, because this episode is going to be dedicated solely to my recap of Rhode Island Comic Con 2023, which just occurred a week ago. So now my brain.
What date was it? And I actually don't remember when you went.
It was the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th.
Oh right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I only went the 3rd and the 4th because I had family situation on the 5th that I couldn't get out of.
But what guests were there? I didn't even look it up this year.
So there was such again, I don't want to not do it justice. There was such a guest list this year. They always seem to top it every single year, and the tagline is the biggest show in the smallest state. And they always live up to that moniker, because I put it against just about every show you can think of outside of New York Comic Con and New York and obviously San Diego, and then maybe MCM in London. Those are like the big ones, I feel, every year. And so for the guest list, last minute they brought on Marissa Tomei, which was like just so left field. I didn't expect it. They had Katie Seagal from Sons of Anarchy and Married with Children, which is one of my all-time favorite shows. Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy, which like every woman in the world dropped trow. They were so excited that she was there. So they probably made up about 30% of the people in attendance. Then you had, it was all over the place, but they covered so many bases, and I'm just going to try to do the ones off my head. They had all the Superman, Tyler Hoechlin from Superman and Lois. Then they had Dean Cain from Lois and Clark. They had Tom Welling from Smallville, and they had Brandon Routh from Superman Returns. And then
I saw a picture of that, and it looked like Tom Welling was standing on tiptoes next to Brandon Routh, and I was like, is he trying to make it look like he can fly, or that he's taller than them, or is he just is it one of those moments where it captures a joke but the joke doesn't come across in a still image?
Yeah, exactly. And oh god, I apologize for the yawn. It's been a long week, but so there's that. And then there was Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor, who I missed, and I really wish I saw. He was always on my hit list to meet and chat with, but I couldn't fit it in. The way it all worked out, it was so packed that there was so much to do, and it was almost like you had to dedicate certain time like you would a theme park, like this time. Yeah, and the foot traffic was massive. So it wasn't completely free flow. It was, there was quite a lot of like bottlenecking because of just all the guests in attendance. So then you have the mainstays like Lou Ferrigno, but you also had who else did you have? Oh, you had some wrestlers, obviously, which is where I always wind up. But you had the cast of the X-Men animated series, which I think I sent you the picture of me in Xavier's chair with the life-size animated X-Men.
You did, yeah, you did.
Incredible. So first of all, those life-size animated X-Men, I would kill to have on a retro card, but like, forget even the retro card, just being near them was so cool. They were all handmade by this one guy, and he makes them, and he does make them for sale too. The issue is he starts them at $3,500, and it's like, wait, what are you going to do with 3,500?
Yeah,
I can think different. You know what I mean?
Wolverine I get it though. Like the size of them, like I get why it would be so.
Oh, dude,
so costly. But yeah,
so much intricacy and detail and time goes into those.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, kudos to him for doing it, but like, who can afford that? Except if you're out in like Beverly Hills, and even then, I don't know if you can afford all of them. But
yeah.
it's fabulous to see. It's something you do not see. And then I asked him, are you going to do Spider-Man the animated series? And he's like, I'm working on that. But he's like, that's a huge cast. He's like, but I'm also working on Batman the animated series. And I'm like, oh my God, like that.
You almost didn't want to know that.
No, because like X-Men I adore and Spider-Man I love.
Mm-hmm.
But like Batman is the one that will get me if I see this thing and it's like life. Oh man, I'm like, no, please don't. You know what I mean? I don't want to be fucking financing a life-size Kevin Conroy Batman.
Yeah,
because I will. So there was them. Let me see. I'm just trying to think of who else. You had the cast of the Superman and Lois with the kids, and there's a funny story and anecdote with that I'll tell you in a few minutes. But you had Carl Weathers. You had God. You had so many guests. I'm just not doing it justice, but off the top, like those are the ones that. Oh yeah, you had the cast of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series, the whole animated cast, then down to the original April, which is Renee Jacobs. Then you had my favorite lady in the world for conventions, Judith Hogue. We always catch up whenever we see each other, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful guest for every convention. I've never heard one bad thing about her. She just
that's always nice.
Yeah, she brings in a crowd, and she's just always full of energy. But you also had Paige Turco for the first time in, I don't know, many, many, many years on American soil for a convention, because she usually does them overseas in like the UK. So you had her, and she was April O'Neil for TMNT 2 and TMNT 3. So at one point you had all three Aprils together, the animated and then two live action, which was cool. Then you had Ernie Reyes Jr., who plays Kino, who I sent you some of the clips. Like,
you did, yeah.
Super stoked to meet these guys. They were great. And who else did you have? Then you had, for wrestlers, you had Scott Steiner, you had Matt Hardy, you had Rikishi, you had those three holding it down from like the WWE, WWF Hall of Fame style. And then or WCW, and then you had obviously Matt Hardy, who's with AEW now. But like, it was supposed to be Britt Baker, Darby Allin, and Dustin Runnels, and all three of them did not. They all backed out at the last minute. So it was Orange Cassidy and Matt Hardy holding it down for AEW completely by themselves. And I've never seen Orange Cassidy at a convention until now, and he did well. He had a good turnout, and he did really well as far as, managing it. And I actually chatted with him, and I said, how you're holding it down for the AEW ship? He's like, yeah, those guys. He's like, he said, all the collisioners. He's like, but I'm here. And I was like, yep. And
it kind of fits his character that he just shows up and does what he has to do.
Yeah, and that was the thing too. Like, again, I've never met him. I know he's been on the indies before, and I saw him on the indies years ago, I think in Beyond Wrestling. Way, way, way many years ago, when I remember originally the gimmick of the little kicks to the shin. I totally remember that, but I don't remember too much else on his presentation. I don't know if the hands in the pockets were a thing by then. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I couldn't tell if he was kayfabe or real. It was like, I don't know if this is who he is. and it's just an extension of his mellowness, or like he plays up them. I couldn't tell. I don't have anything to go off of, but it was a really good interaction. The only thing, it's funny, I sent Matthew the picture. So I had this grand idea with my buddy Danelle, who we do the Smart Tank Revolution podcast. And I was like, dude, when I see OC and it's our turn for the pictures, I'm going to put on my mirror Versace shades, and I'm going to do the motion. Like I put my hands into the pockets, like do the whole, like you put your hand up and then swoop your hand down into the pocket, like in the shot. Well, it was weird. We were at an angle the way the photographer took it, or the handler, but at the same time, I did it and I missed my pockets. Completely caught my shirt twice, and I was like, this is just ridiculous. So then I just stuck my hands in my pockets, like just like shoved them in there. And he laughed a bit, and we kind of ogled the international championship, which is quite small in real life. It was funny. And you don't realize his size till you meet him.
I feel like he's probably a lot bigger than he looks.
He's not.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, oh my God. And Danelle's a big boy. Mm-hmm. He's like 6'4", 6'5". So like to Danelle, he's like on par with most of these wrestlers, no problem. But yeah, Orange Cassidy was small, man. He was really small. And I was like, wow. So I'm wondering what Darby is like. Darby must be like tiny in person.
And then, like is not.
But then I did get an interesting tidbit, and I got to chat with Matt Hardy because he was by my cousin's booth. Oh, shout out to Stevie Oakes. He was also on the guest list. He did very, very well. And how can I forget? Seth Green was there. Seth Green was one of the headliners. My cousin actually headlined a panel that was standing room only with Seth Green.
That's cool.
And he killed it. Like, they did the panel, and he did it in character. So he did it as Chris's dad, and Seth Green played along with it quite a bit. And it was just, it was unbelievable. He did such a fantastic job. I couldn't have been more proud of him. It was so exclusive, that panel, that basically I couldn't get in there. And I had to tell them, listen, I don't care about being press. I don't care. I'll hold my badge out. I'll put it on the door or whatever. I'm not in to take pictures. I just want to get in there. That's my family. Let me share this moment with him, please. I want him to know that I support him and I can see him. And yeah, so they, I bartered with them, and they were like, okay, fine. But only one of you can go. So my partner, Danelle, had to stay outside the door, but I didn't go in for the whole hour, because I felt that would have been really wrong. I just went in there for about 10 minutes. I wanted to see the gist of it, and just
let him know that you were there, right? Like it's one thing if you can get in and sit there for the entire show when you're not taking up a seat, but when you've got to flex your whatever credentials you can get, like, hey, look, this is why I want to get in there, and then that make it, like, it does make more sense at that point why you don't want to stay in there for too long.
Right, exactly. And then the thing was, I also didn't want to take him off his game by any chance at all. And the funny thing was, he said it was like out of body. He didn't even realize he was there. Like, he just kind of was on autopilot and just in awe the whole time. I was like, did you see me in the back clapping, standing up? He's like, I didn't see anybody. He's like, my wife was in the front row and I barely saw her. He's like, but I saw the replay and I was really glad that you showed up. And I was like, well, that's what it's about,
Mm-hmm. And, that's just it. Like, you were there for him. He didn't need you, which is often the case when you're on the spotlight like that. But you're not going to know that in the moment, right? So
yeah, my dad used to say, and my dad used to speak in front of thousands of people at a time. He used to say that he never allowed his mother to go to his things when he was younger, or when he was in like hockey championships. He would never allow his mom to go because he was always afraid she would take him off his game. Like he would try to either outdo himself or be distracted. So like my poor grandmother never got to see any of my dad's hockey championships when he either played for championships or when he coached championships with the Boston Braves. So like, and then when my dad did his job when he was traveling around the country talking on the space program, it kind of just extended. I was really the only person who ever went, and it took him a little while for him to open that up to me. And he just was very comfortable in front of me, but like none of my other family. And once in a blue moon, like I remember my dad, where did he speak? I think he spoke at Harvard, and my family went then, and that was it. Or no, I'm sorry, it was MIT. And then some of my family members, like my cousin, my uncle, and like whatever, they went and saw him in person, what he does. But other than that, my dad wasn't a big fan of like family entering shows or whatever on the road, because he just always felt like it took something away from the element, which is weird.
Yeah.
And that I've never had that ability. Like I've never had that with me. Like I've never worried about like my mom or someone being around or whatever. It's different. Like just a sidebar. Of course, we're gonna tangent, and shout out to Rhode Island Comic Con. You guys were fantastic, but this is the show. This is what we do. We always tangent somehow. But this tangent, I think, is apropos because we're coming up next year on the 5th anniversary of my dad's passing in April, and I always get a little melancholy around November, towards the holidays. And it started a lot earlier this year with this week, and I started realizing that being around my dad has enabled me to be so comfortable in doing what I do at these conventions. Like I learned it all from him. I didn't realize that until this week. Like it's really no different. It's just a transition of the subject matter. We both tend to speak with guests and speak off the cuff and have to speak in front of people sometimes for a crowd, whether it's video or whatever. And I learned that all from him, and I've just been really grateful for that, because growing up with him has taught me how to handle that kind of stuff. It's very rare you will get me starstruck. Very, very, very rare you'll get me starstruck or fumble my words. Only one who like Mandy Rose was like one of the only ones that I was like trembling when I met her, and then I just was able to push through. But like her and Kevin Conroy was an experience when I met him back in 2015. He was definitely like a starstruck moment.
Well, I mean, yes, Kevin Conroy though, right? Like
God, yeah. It's and I would be the same in front of Mark Hamill. I'm sure I'd be the same in front of Robert Downey Jr. Like things like that. There are certain people that I would be that way with. But for the most part, I'm pretty cool and collected. I'm very natural. I try to make it very buddy-like. I don't try to make it like, hey, I'm from so-and-so news or whatever, because I feel like it's just hokey and it comes off ridiculous.
I find, like, I think I would often the same way. It's more a case of I'm not going to try and say, hey, I'm from this or I'm from that. It's they get enough of that. Like it's like when we had Matthew on the first time, like, hey, look, we'll talk about what you want to talk about. We're not trying to get any kind of scoop. We'll happily edit and change things as necessary, and we oddly never ever need to. But it's much more of a come hang out, we'll shoot the shit. It's not a talk about whatever you want to talk about. I mean, it took us 3 shows to finally talk about Matthew's book, like in detail.
Yeah, I hijacked the first couple episodes for sure, up on tangents, and he is a wonderful guest. He's like we always say Matthew Klein is our 3rd co-host. I mean, I sincerely mean that. If we did a 3-person show, he would definitely be the guy, because we just gel with him so well. And I can't wait. Speaking of, we're going to be speaking with him again very soon with our Full Gear Wrestling podcast. Predictions like we like to do, and those have been fun.
Yeah, but so amazingly, we're actually not talking about that this week. Well,
Yeah,
I don't know how to math the episode things, but we're not talking about that on the two we're recording today. So
right. We'll figure it out. But we need to with him. Like we missed the boat with Crown Jewel.
Yeah, but I feel like we would have got that mostly right anyway. Ultimately,
we did. That was a very predictable pay-per-view, with the exception of Solo and Cena. Really threw me.
Before we go off on a tangent, do you have any other thoughts about Rhode Island?
Yes, of course. So I just want to say also, they did such a wonderful job maintaining order and keeping everything so focused, because with the SAG-AFTRA strike, they really couldn't talk about too much. So normally what I've been seeing and hearing about at conventions is like people are just seeing and going in and getting heard like cattle, and then like, hi, nice to meet you, how you doing, because they can't answer any questions. So like you can't talk about any project that they've been in or that they are going to be in. It's been very restrictive. This convention, I saw everybody, including myself, get a ton of time with guests in between photos and in between meets. Like no one was rushed at a table. No, even though there was lines, no one was ever rushed their experience. And you could talk to them and get a genuine experience without getting, as you would say, a scoop. So, yeah, the other thing I want to plug is the vendors were fantastic. It is marks a milestone in the first time that I spent less than $200 the whole thing for vendors. I spent it everywhere else, but I bought one figure on the way out, which was a G.I. Joe Range Viper from Classified, and the guy had it brand new in the box, sealed, for $15. And I've been trying to find the Range Viper from Walmart for months and months and months. And I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I bought a ton of these. He's like, so I'm just trying to get rid of it. And then I bought a diorama, which is basically like a part of a sewer wall and a sewer floor with an entrance. So it looks like a makeshift, either the Turtles comic book lair or a movie lair, which is kind of cool. And that's something you don't see at conventions either, is dioramas. And there was this one guy who just had a huge diorama booth with just a plethora of different dioramas.
That's a good word. I do like that word. Sorry, that's going to be another tangent if we're not careful.
Yeah. Plethora is a great word. I pepper once in a very long. But yeah, no, I mean, there was just so much going on. There's so much content on TV. There's so much, like, it's just, I can tell you this. I got to chat with the Hasbro team. That was one of my fucking favorite moments. Emily from G.I. Joe, you know who she is? She's the blonde from G.I. Joe live streams.
I don't watch G.I. Joe live streams, so no. But
okay,
don't let that distract from what you're going to say.
She's a shorter, bubbly blonde from the G.I. Joe live stream, and she came on originally when Classified was like a year in, and she joined the live streams, and she, to her credit, when she started, a lot of people, including myself, weren't super receptive of her because she wasn't a quote unquote G.I. Joe fan. And she admitted that. She was like, I don't really know much about G.I. Joe, but I'm on the brand. She has been the focal point of the brand since she's come on, and she's made it grow so well. So I asked to take her picture, and we talked for like 10 minutes, and like all her team around her for Hasbro, which was the Ghostbusters team and the G.I. Joe team, was like, are you a celebrity? Like, why does she keep talking? You know what I mean? Because like I talked so much HasLab with all the teams, except for Marvel, they weren't there. And they were like taking notes. And I was giving them so much credit because at that point, the Ghostbusters HasLab had funded in 3 days.
Yeah, that's insane.
And I told them, I'm like, you guys killed it. And I said, you know what it is everyone stays in their own lane and speaks to their niche. Like Marvel is big characters, big, cosmic, massive, larger than life characters. And those are the ones that are successful, including Giant Man. And then I said, G.I. Joe, you guys will never miss. And she's like, why is that? I said, because you guys stay with vehicles and you have an endless line of vehicles if you want to do it. She goes, that's very, very true. I'm like, you guys are never going to miss. It will always fund. There's a huge market because everything you do can double as an army builder or whatever. And then Ghostbusters, I said, as long as you guys stick with props like you did, the Proton Pack, which I'm looking at right now, and the trap and the PK meter, which I've backed.
I stopped tracking the PK meter. How far did it get?
I don't know, but the trap meter funded immediately, and then I haven't really checked it. I know it hit one stretch goal the last time I checked a week ago, so it might even be fully funded. I don't know. I'll have to check. Yeah. But as long as they stick with that, they'll be fine, because I told them, I said, it's a shame that the 6-inch toy line isn't taking off. It didn't do very well, the Plasma series, and it's not for the fact that the figures aren't decent or good. It's the scale is so wonky. Like, they're in between 5.5 and 6-inch scale. Like, it's strange. They don't quite fit a 1/12 scale, but they're not quite a retro scale either. They're like in limbo. And yeah, I said, as long as you stick with props, you guys are going to be doing fine. But yeah, so I geeked out with the Hasbro teams for a while, and they laughed. They had, I gave them my ideas for all future HasLabs, and like, I swear to God, a couple of them were like writing it down, but they were like, wow, that's not bad. But my Ghostbusters one was really ambitious, and they're like, I don't know if we can do it, because I asked them, I'm like, all right, we got the Proton Pack, we got the PKA meter and the trap now. I said, now you got to do the containment unit. And they're like, dude, because there was a guy who built a full-fledged containment unit up on the top floor. And that was one of my highlights of the show. I'm like, just go to that guy, ask him how he did it, and then mass market it. And they were like, yeah, but it's the size of a wall. We don't know what we would do with mass marketing. I'm like, that's your homework. Figure out how to make the thing.
That's not a you problem.
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of props, huge props to the front runners of Altered Reality Entertainment, who runs the Rhode Island Comic Con, TerraCon, and I think it's also there's one in Colorado that I wasn't part of this year, but they run multiple shows throughout the year under the Rhode Island umbrella, and Rhode Island is their WrestleMania, and they never disappoint. And this year, I swear it was better than last year. It just flowed better. Even though it was more packed, it flowed better. It just had something for everybody. I mean, again, they always find a way to top themselves, and it's Rhode Island. Like, who would have think that Rhode Island would get a guest like Marissa Tomei? She's a freaking Oscar winner. Like, that's not a chump change, guest. And they got her, and they got others too. And like I said, if you want to check the website for, the past guests, get an idea of what you're looking at and what is available to you, it just makes me excited for what's going to come next year for their guests, because they always seem to top themselves. So, yeah, I wanted to give them a big shout. I want to thank them once again. They're always my home for conventions. I feel like I'm getting sick, but yeah, no, I'm very, very pleased to be part of that team, and couldn't be happier. And I will always promote it. And if we get asked, we will promote it on this show, whether it's live or whatever they want. I've always told the press department, please send me whatever you need. And I stand by that. So that's all I got.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.